What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today we're going to be discussing the world premiere TCG archetype coming out in Phantom Rage, Myutants. The original video was released on Ruggles' channel, so you can go ahead and check that out. I'll have a link down in the description. It was a very well-edited video, but today we're just going to be going through the cards on YG Organization, talking about their effects, seeing if this archetype has any competitive potential, because we know with TCG exclusive archetypes, it can be like completely over the top or completely in the other direction, and so that's what I want to bring to you guys today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first card we have here is actually the trap card Mutant Cry. So normal trap, during the main phase, you can fusion summon one Mutant Fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling the fusion materials listed on it into the deck from among cards on the field or in your graveyard and or your face-up banished cards, and you can only activate one Mutant Cry per turn. So this is essentially like a, El Shaddai fusion, Necro fusion, fuse on your opponent's turn type of effect, but you're allowed to use monsters on the field, in the grave, or banish pile. This is a fusion-centric archetype, and just kind of setting the precedence by starting off with this card may give you some ideas as to the potential that this archetype may have. So that's a pretty good card. Let's go ahead and move down to one of the first monsters here, Myutant M-05. So it is a water level 2 psychic effect monster, 0 attack, 500 defense. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one mutant monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself, and you can tribute this card, then banish one card from your hand or face-up field, special summon one monster from your hand or deck based on the banished card. So if you banish a monster, you can summon Myutant Beast. If you banish a spell, you can summon Myutant Mist, and if you banish a trap, you can summon Myutant Arsenal. You can only use each effect of Myutant M-05 once per turn. Okay, so it's a great starter. You're able to search for any of your mutant cards. It gives you a card immediately then to use for the effect. You tribute and you banish that card that you searched from your hand. You're only allowed to go into Myutant Beast just solely off of that by itself, but it does allow you to get into Myutant Beast just in and of itself, which is great. We'll have to see what those other cards do, but that's not bad. Now, I want to check something here. That is a cost to tribute the card and banish a card from your hand or face-up field. So if you do get negated, you're going to be getting 2-for-1 pretty hard, so do keep that in mind. But not bad. I think that's a pretty decent starter. Obviously, it depends what the other ones of these look like, so let's go ahead and progress forward. Next up is Myutant ST-46. It is a water psychic effect, level 3, 500 attack, 0 defense. If it's normal or special summon, you can add one mutant spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and you can tribute this card, then banish a card from your hand or face-up field, special summon a monster from your hand or deck based on the type. So again, monster, you can summon Myutant Beast, spell Myutant Mist, and trap Myutant Arsenal. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this is the searcher for spells and traps in the archetype, and similarly, you can basically just by adding a spell or trap, Myutant ST-46 just by itself allows you to get into either Myutant Mist or Myutant Arsenal depending on what you search. Now, we'll have to see what those do a little bit later on here, but it's cool that the starter itself can get you into one of the bigger monsters, and so I'm curious to see what these other cards do. Looks like we have another level 4 lower here, so it's Myutant GB-88, maybe another starter. It's a water psychic effect, level 4, 500 attack, 500 defense. During your opponent's main phase, if Myutant Evolution Lab is in your field zone, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, you can tribute this card, then banish one card from your hand or face-up field, special summon one of your level 8 mutant monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. Okay, so this does require you to have the field spell, and it has to be during your opponent's main phase, but it is a quick effect to special summon it, tribute it, you get to banish a card again from your hand or field, so it's similar to the previous starters. It just allows you to do this during your opponent's turn, and you're able to pick any of the level 8 mutants. It just has to be one that's either banished or in the graveyard. So, okay, not too bad. Let's go ahead and see what we get into these level 8s here, and if these are going to be worth summoning. So first up is Myutant Beast. Remember, this is the one that you would be tributing and banishing a monster for in order to summon. So it is a Earth Beast effect, level 8, 2400 attack and defense, cannot be special summoned except with the effect of a mutant card. Your opponent cannot target this card with monster effects. Not bad. I wish it just had blanket targeting protection, but monster effects is pretty prevalent in the meta, so that's good. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. When your opponent activates a spell, card, or effect, quick effect, you can banish a card from your hand or field, negate that activation, and if you do, banish that card. That's pretty good. If this card is in its owner's possession, is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target one of your banished mutant traps and add it to your hand. So spell negation is pretty good. Spells are some of the most powerful cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! It also banishes the card too, so there's no way for them to recur it. I think that's pretty good. It also has the effect that it gets a trap back to your hand. So, I mean, if we're going back up here to the Mutant Cry for any of the fusion shenanigans we're going to see a little bit later on, that's not bad. It has to be destroyed by an opponent's card effect. So, like, if it gets sent, it's not going to count. You know, there's all these ways to kind of bypass that. It can get banished, unfortunately. So, like, that wouldn't work too well. But spell negation's pretty good. Now let's move on to Myutant Mist. So this is the one you summon by banishing a spell from your hand and one of the starters. It is a wind spellcaster effect, level 8, 2700 attack, 2900 defense, very big stats on this. Cannot be special summoned except by a mutant card. Your opponent cannot target this with spell effects. Okay, so this is making sense. Each one of them has protection from the respective card that was used to summon it. Okay, you can only use each of the effects once per turn. When your opponent activates a trap card quick effect, you can banish one card from your hand or field, draw 2 cards. Okay, that's pretty neat. It does require your opponent to be playing trap cards, so like off the top of my head, like Eldritch, that'd be pretty good against. You also have stuff such as like Guru Control. Decks play trap cards, but obviously some decks are going to play more than others. I think Eldritch is the first one that pops into my head. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, target one of your banished mutant monsters and add it to your hand. So I think the thing is, this card is very powerful, but it does rely on your opponent to specifically be having trap cards in their deck for you to get the full value of the cycling effect from this card. Being able to get one of your banished monsters back is good, but again, I don't think you're going to be going into this one as much, just solely due to the fact that it really relies on your opponent playing traps if you want to. And then again, you're not getting that recursion effect unless your opponent specifically destroys it by a card effect. So, I mean, destroyed by an opponent's card, so battle would work as well. But still, it's a little bit more conditional, but not terrible. I'll say that. Next up is Myutant Arsenal. So this is a fire machine effect, level 8, 3000 attack, 1000 defense. Cannot be special summoned except by the effect of a mutant card. Your opponent cannot target this with trap effects. Makes sense. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. Remember, this is the one that you banish a trap card as well as sacrifice the monster, one of the starters, to summon. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish one card from your hand or field, then target one monster on the field, banish it. And if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, target one of your banished mutant spells, add it to your hand. So this is strangely one of the best ones. I think Arsenal and Beast are probably the best two, because Beast negates spells. Arsenal can just immediately pop and banish a monster, which is huge, especially if it doesn't require like any sort of effect. Like, this is good for stopping link climbing. This is good for stopping something that has an ignition effect, so then that way that effect doesn't get a chance to activate. So that's really cool. Again, you do have to banish a trap in order for this card to work. Interestingly enough, because it has protection from trap effects, Infinite Impermanence does not stop this, so that's actually kind of neat that it has that little incidental synergy there. It can be stopped by other monster effects, of course, but I mean, being immune to impermanence, especially if you're going first and setting this up, that's not too bad. I definitely think this is probably either the best or the second best one compared to Beast. It just depends on the situation. Now let's get into the fusions. Oh boy, the artwork on these cards are cool. So it's Myutant Synthesis. It is a water psychic fusion effect monster, level 9, 2500 attack, 2000 defense. Requires 2 mutant monsters with different attributes. So it doesn't say they have to be level 8 or higher, so you could use any mutant monsters with different attributes. So we have fire, wind, earth, and then all the starters, it seems, are water. So you could use one of the small ones and one of the large ones that that's pretty good to take note of. So if this card is fusion summoned, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. Okay, that already goes very well with the Mutant Trap Fusion because it allows you to just immediately flip that up, use the effect, and then you can pop a card on your opponent's field. Not too bad, especially if you use that after, like, say, using the effect of Arsenal to already pop something, then you flip up the trap, summon Synthesis, and you can pop another card after that. That's pretty good. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, this face-up card is unaffected by the effects of an opponent's card of the same type, monster, spell, or trap as that card. If this fusion summon card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can add one of your banished mutant cards to your hand. You can only use each effect, of Mutant Synthesis once per turn. Okay, so not only can this pop a card, what's also neat is that if your opponent would attempt to threaten this card, you can make it immune to those types of effects for the turn. So your opponent has to basically have a follow-up effect to be able to chain in response to deal with this, or just has to use a card of a different type. Now, again, in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, traps aren't exactly super prevalent, so if you make it immune to monster effects, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to deal with this. And then same thing goes for like spell effects. Think of like Sky Striker, you know, if they don't have, if this has immunity to spell cards, then it's going to be difficult for them to be able to out this. So pretty interesting card, definitely. So let's move on to the next one. Myutant Ultimus. So it is a dark psychic fusion effect monster, level 10. Oh my god. 3,500 attack, 3,000 defense. It requires 3 level 8 or higher mutant monsters. So that means that any of the level 8s, but also technically that means you could use a Mutant Synthesis to summon this. It doesn't have a restriction that it has to be a non-fusion monster. So I guess that kind of could come up. I'm not too sure. But in any case, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can banish a mutant card from your hand, graveyard, or face-up field of the same type, either monster, spell, or trap. Negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. Okay, that's really powerful. So it's basically like, I think the issue I have with this is that it has to be of the specific type, right? So if you don't have the right cards, this can be a little bit conditional. However, again, traps you can kind of just like put to the side, because as long as you have a monster or a spell in your hand, you're probably going to have the ability to protect. It also banishes, which is very important, so I think that's very good. If this fusion summon card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can add up to 3 of your banished mutant cards, up to 1 of each monster, spell, or trap, and add them to your hand, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So what I like about this is that this card has a very high investment cost, but if it is destroyed by your opponent's card, then you're able to recur all of that back. So yeah, there are ways to, again, dodge this. If it gets sent to the graveyard, it's not going to work. But if your opponent doesn't have another way to out this and they're forced to destroy it through traditional means, then you're pretty much going to get all the cards you invested into this back out of it, albeit it is going to be in a different way because it's not going to be 3 level 8 or highers. You're going to get a mutant monster, mutant spell, or mutant trap. But that's going to set you up pretty nice. You can get like one of the starters, and that can get you another card. You can get the trap back to set up again next turn. We haven't even gotten to the spells yet, so let's go ahead and progress forward and see what some of these spells do. First up is Myutant Evolution Lab. It's a field spell. When this card is activated, you can special summon one of your level 4 or lower mutant monsters from your hand, or that is banished. Okay, so it doesn't summon it from the deck, so you're not plussing off of this, but it allows you to get another monster onto the board. So you could go like normal summon one of the ones that searches, then you can go Myutant Evolution Lab, summon the other one, and then you can just plus even further because you're able to kind of get an extra summon out of that. Mutant monsters you control gain 100 attack for each of your banished mutant cards with different names. Okay, that's not bad. Once per turn during your main phase, you can place 1 mutant monster from your hand on the bottom of your deck, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only activate 1 Mutant Evolution Lab per turn. So this is cool because if your hand gets clogged with the level 8s, you can put one of those on the bottom of your deck and draw a fresh card. And that's nice because it kind of helps you not brick. Now, the thing I don't like about Myutant Evolution Lab is that it isn't actually a starter in and of itself. Looks like Konami's been kind of like straying away from field spells that just immediately generate advantage. That's why terraforming is limited and such. So yeah, that is kind of a drawback, but this card does a lot. Again, it's not perfect, but it is pretty cool. It helps sculpt your hand a little bit. It gives you extra summons, which is cool. I guess if you wanted to kind of get extra summons, you could also play like Brain Research Lab, but I mean, this is is purely better because A, it's a mutant card because you can search it, but B, it just does better things. It doesn't have the nasty drawback that Brain Research Lab has. Just came to mind because it was psychic themed. So next up is Myutant Fusion. Okay, so they have a normal spell card. Fusion summon one Mutant Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your hand or field. If your opponent has activated a card or effect this turn, you can use up to one monster each from your deck and graveyard as fusion material. You can only activate one Mutant Fusion per turn. So this is kind of like a pseudo Shaddoll Fusion. I don't really want to call it Shaddoll Fusion, but you are able to, if your opponent activates a effect, which means they could activate a hand trap, they could activate any sort of effect on their field, you are then able to send one of those materials from the deck, so that means you can get the level 8 out of your deck. You can use something from the graveyard, so if you do some plays where it involves linking off, then you have material there, and so it makes fusion summoning these bigger monsters much easier, especially with like Ultimus, because you really need to get those level 8s. That can be a little bit difficult. But Synthesis becomes super easy to summon just off of Mutant Fusion alone. There definitely needs to be more setup for the bigger one though, for sure, but not bad. And then I think this is the last card here, Mutant Blast, an equip spell card. Equip only to a level 8 or higher mutant monster you control. At the start of the damage step, if this equipped monster attacks an opponent's special summon monster, you can banish that opponent's monster. So it's basically like El Shaddoll Construct, but in an equip spell. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can banish this card, send the monster this card was equipped to the graveyard. And if you do, special summon one level 8 mutant monster with a different original attribute from your hand or deck. You can only use this effect once per turn. So the nice thing is that this is searchable, so you probably could just play one of this and get away with it if the situation were ever to arise, and then you could do shenanigans where you can get into multiple level 8s, and you can essentially mutate, no pun intended, one of these level 8s into another. This gives you actually some nice setup. Then if you need the level 8s for Mutant Ultimus, then you can have one in the graveyard for Mutant Fusion. You'll have one on the field after the effect of the equip spell Mutant Blast is activated, and then if your opponent used an effect, you can then use the secondary effect of Mutant Fusion to send one from the deck as well, and right there you've got 3 level 8s to go into the Ultimus. So I think that's probably the best way you're going to get into this, but overall, not too bad. I think this archetype has a lot of competitive potential. The reason I say that is because the cards do a lot of negating, they do a lot of banishing, they're not xenophobic. You can actually incorporate these cards with any other archetype. There's no restriction on only going solely with psychic monsters or going solely with mutant cards. They just allow you to splash them with any other type of deck, and so you're able to just, you know, kind of freely experiment, and that's, I mean, another pun inadvertently, but you're able to experiment with other archetypes to kind of see if they mesh well together, and I actually think that's really, really cool. I love when Konami makes archetypes that are splashable in this way because it allows people to have a lot more creativity in the deck building process to be able to figure out what the best way is going to be to play these types of decks, and maybe multiple variants of these decks will emerge. We've seen that with strategies in the past like Invoked and Eldritch and the like, and some of those archetypes even have restrictions on them, and people still find ways to amalgamize them together, and so I think there's actually a lot of potential here. This is really, really cool. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting more support for this archetype in the future. Konami seems to just be going all out and giving us as much of this archetype as they can straight out of the gate. And we're going to have to see how this archetype evolves because I think there's some serious potential here. Definitely. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the brand new mutant archetype. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.